Welcome back to the Toro Hospital studio. I'm Nick Underhill here with Mike Triplett. We got everything you need to know to get ready for week 1 of the NFL season. What's going on with Kendre Miller? Is Chris Olave somebody that you can trust fantasy-wise? Of course, the Saints have total trust in him, but where's he going to end up ranking this season? We're going to break all that stuff down and so much more. We are presented by PJ's Coffee, so make sure you go check out one of their many locations throughout the New Orleans region and elsewhere. They have locations everywhere. Get your day started every single day with them. And if you have any healthcare needs, make sure you check out the LCMC Healthcare Network, Toro Hospital. They'll make sure and get you right if you need to get right. But one person that always is going to get you right is Matt Bowers. If you need a car, check out one of his many dealerships in the Gulf Coast region. I vouch for him. That's where I buy all my cars. The NewOrleans.Football show is proudly presented by PJ's Coffee. PJ's Coffee has some of the best drinks that you can find. They have locations all over the city. They have pastries and everything else you need to get your day started. So go check them out.
For fast relief coffee.
Mike Hoss here. When the AC goes out and it's hot outside, every second counts. For over 40 years, Keefe's AC Heating and Electrical has helped thousands of families stay cool in the sizzling hot months. Keefe's Get You Cool in 3 hours or less guarantee is what our customers love the most. On the North or South Shore, call Keefe's. We'll get you cool in 3 hours or less guaranteed.
Keefe's Air Conditioning and Heating.
And now electrical.
For fast relief, call Keefe.
Moe's Barbecue is located in Metairie. They have your game day needs taken care of. Whether you're tailgating or watching the Black and Gold or LSU at home with friends, Moe's has you covered. Order pulled pork, wings, ribs, sides, and more. Come in with the family for lunch and dinner, as our kids' meals will please even the pickiest of eaters. Tailgating, parties at home, lunch and dinner, Moe's Barbecue will handle it all. Moe's Original Barbecue, 1101 North Causeway Boulevard between 48th and 49th Street in Metairie. Call 504-407-5333 for your catering order today. 504-407-5333. Moe's Original Barbecue in Metairie. Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. Blended in New Orleans, it is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. NewOrleans.Football is proud to be sponsored by Firehouse Subs. Make sure you check out their location on Veterans Boulevard. All right, let's get into the show. All right, welcome back to the Toro Hospital studio. Our lead topic today presented by Friend & Company Fine Jewelers. Kendre Miller has a hamstring injury. This is third injury since being with the team. It's kind of something to keep an eye on. DA was asked about it yesterday if he was going to be available for week 1. The coach referenced the injury report. We're now kind of playing it a little bit coy now that these injuries do kind of matter a little bit. A couple guys get signed to the practice squad. They're both running backs. We'll kind of see how it goes. Our Friend & Company Fine Jewelers, they are proud to announce their new engagement salon. I don't have on a diamond earring or a diamond necklace. Maybe Brooke does, wherever she's at. But you guys have seen it before, so go check that out. They have a special price for NOF listeners. How are you kind of feeling about this situation? It has to be at least, I think, a little bit concerning. Yeah. We did see Kendre Miller walk through the locker room yesterday. Wasn't limping, but I don't know.
We had this exact same discussion a couple weeks ago when he got injured in the preseason opener, and we were like, yeah, that's a little concerning because you want him ready to go in week 1. Alvin is already on suspension. Alvin is not practicing with the team right now. And last time it turned out to be no big deal. He came back a couple days later, looked great in the joint practices with the Chargers, looked great in the game. But you're right, this is 3 now. He had that knee injury dating back to college that wiped out all of OTAs. He had the minor thing in the second week of the preseason. Knee injury
too, yeah.
And then he has this now. And so you do wonder, you think the young guy is supposed to be the guy who's not an injury concern in the backfield with the 2 28-year-olds, but he's got to be available. It can't be stops and starts with him. And I wanted to see him hit the ground running. We thought, okay, they've got decent running back depth. Darrell Williams didn't make this team. Ellis Merriweather didn't make this team. The 2 guys on the practice squad just showed up yesterday from Buffalo and Denver. All of a sudden, it's like Jamal Williams is the only known commodity in the backfield. It feels thin again.
The fact that they went out and got Tony Jones Jr. is the thing that makes me a little bit concerned about it, because if you are preparing for a potential injury, you're getting the guy that can hit the ground running right away, and he's definitely that guy. Obviously, Ellis Merriweather's been around the whole offseason, but I think just if you have to give somebody carries, you probably feel a little bit better giving the ball to Tony Jones Jr. just because he's been around for so long. you might need some help in protection situations. He kind of knows your protections probably a little bit better than Ellis Merriweather does.
Yeah.
He's faced live bullets for, over a longer
Pass
period.
protection was the first thing I thought when I saw
Yeah.
Tony Jones Jr.
And Kendre Miller, look, I mean, this is frustrating in the sense that he's someone that you should be excited about right now. I think everything he's done this summer has been at a really, really high level. He had like a superstar moment in pass protection we saw in the preseason. His route running has been like unbelievably good, especially considering he was targeted like less than 15 times his whole entire college career. Route running looks really good. He's getting out on these wheel routes. That's something to be excited about. His running itself was something to be excited about. Maybe he's ready week 1, but it just kind of feels like start, stop, start, stop,
Yep.
start, stop. And until you see some momentum going, I think there's no other way to feel a little bit worried about how his health is going so far. So it's just something that he needs to get on the other side of. And you have 3 layers of depth. And there's 3 guys on this team. You don't want to see anybody else carry the ball the whole entire season.
We
and
should
they might
talk
be down
about
2 already.
we should talk about Kirk Merritt briefly because I forgot to mention his name. I think we both thought he made the team partly because he could do some of the Alvin plays while Alvin is gone, and I think he's their number 2 kickoff returner. But I don't expect him to have heavy volume in the offense. So it really is probably Jamal Williams and whoever's active, whether that's Kendre Miller or whether that's Tony Jones Jr. or bringing somebody else back. Look, we still don't know. Kendre Miller could be fine to go week 1. It'll be next Wednesday when we really know for sure. But the fact that DA was being coy, maybe DA has told himself, be coy from now on. That's what you have to do. We're in competitive mode. But I feel like just the day before when Jameis Winston's thing was going to be day-to-day, he still said, oh, that's day-to-day. He'll be back within a day or 2. I think if Kendre Miller was going to be back within a day or 2, he would have said it.
I'll play devil's advocate here a little bit. Like Jameis doesn't matter though.
Yeah.
Whether he's healthy or not, it doesn't impact any. The Titans aren't like looking at it and going, this changes what we're doing. Like if Kendre's not playing or playing, it does kind of give something away a little bit.
You're right.
I'll be real too. Like if he doesn't play like that, that is something that kind of like I think he's important enough given the situation that if he doesn't play, like it is something that I think like maybe tilts the game a little bit. Not the fully. I don't think like the result of the game rides on Kendre Miller, but like if he plays, I feel better about the Saints than if he doesn't play in this game. I do think this is like a significant deal. It's a 3rd round pick. He was drafted with this specific situation in mind.
Yeah.
Like Alvin's going to miss time. We got to have high level guys ready to go. You take one out of it, I think it is a big deal.
We're going to get to our fantasy segment soon, but I think a lot of people tuning in have fantasy drafts this weekend. So there's a 2-part question. First of all, this is why they brought Jamal Williams in here. Jamal Williams can get 25 touches in week 1 if needed. He's done that before. He's built to do that. He can catch, he can pass protect, and he can run the ball. So I'd feel good about him if Kendre Miller looks doubtful or is limited in practice. But Kendre Miller in general, like I think a month ago, he would have been one of our top fantasy tips. Like get him in your 10th round, stash him. He could be something special. Are you still using a 10th round fantasy pick on Kendre Miller thinking this is a great stash? And do you still advise that other people should?
Yeah, I'm still taking him. I don't think one game makes a difference too much.
Yeah.
I mean, these are like the high value games that you get out of him, but I think he would be worth that even if Alvin was around. He's someone that I want on the team. I think by the end of the season, I'm kind of looking at him like he's probably going to be the more impactful player, and he should be. Like he's a 3rd round pick. That's a high pick for a running back. He should be a high impact player, and I think he will be at some point this year. And I think I think the idea for Alvin from some of the stuff I heard is to kind of like let these guys be the runners.
Yeah.
You be the look, he's still going to get his carries and everything, but I do think that they kind of want to tilt that a little bit and, kind of use Alvin in situations where he's getting the ball more in space. He's more of the receiver. And then you kind of got these 2 workhorses that can just kind of, take the hits. And I think they want to protect Alvin a little bit. So I think he's going to get his volume one way or another throughout the season. And I think it's definitely worth it.
He's still very intriguing. One more thing to say about the Saints in week 1, Taysom Hill was back at practice. He would obviously be a part of the run game. Our moment of the day, sponsored by New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company. Kendre Miller will probably not be the answer to this question. He could have been a candidate. It's going to be the debut, the real debut for a lot of Saints when they play week 1 against the Titans. Who are you most intrigued to watch through the binoculars? This is their debut. I mean, Derek Carr is an obvious answer. Brian Brzee, 1st round draft pick, is an obvious answer. I think Blake Groupie is a candidate for this after they made that big decision. Jimmy Graham, maybe Kendre Miller, maybe, but who's number one? Who's the guy you can't wait to see make their debut for the Saints?
Obviously, it's Carr. Like, so we're both gonna say Carr here.
Yeah.
Like, there's just like you're being cute if you go another direction. So let's just take him off so we can go cute.
Let's
with
have
it.
a Carr discussion though. What do you need to see from Carr in his first game with the Saints?
I want to see him handle. Look, everything we saw in training camp was good, and it's a controlled setting. There's no pass rush, like real pass rush that you actually have to like wince at because nobody's actually going to hit you or anything like that. So it's easy for things to look good when everything's clean. I want to see him look good when things start to get a little bit dirty. Like, are you climbing the pocket? Like, you've added a lot of bulk to your frame. You know, you look like a guy that's kind of prepared to take hits. That kind of was maybe aware that this was one of the weaknesses of your game, that, you know, that pocket presence a little bit is the thing that everybody points to. It looks like Carr tried to address that in some sense with how he changed his body a little bit. So I want to see him just kind of manage those situations well, get the ball out, take those hits, climb the pocket, do all that stuff. Like, just look good when things are dirty. And I'll feel even more confident going forward. But I think that he's exactly what I thought he was going to be when they signed him. Like, there was no real surprise, I think, during camp, positively or negatively. Like, he looked like someone that's a top half of the league quarterback. And it's just kind of where do you slot into that after that. So I just want to see that. Newcomers, like, he's not a newcomer, but he is a newcomer because he missed almost all last season. Like, Mike Thomas is my main thing.
Sure.
Week one. If we're going to look beyond that to like actual new guys, it's Brian Brzee and it's Colin Saunders for me. Like, I just want to see that interior combo and see how they work off each other. Brzee kind of feel like built hype throughout the offseason, just kind of like the spin move was everywhere this
especially
week.
that was hype times too. Yeah,
no question. And he started to come into his own. And I'm just like intrigued by Colin Saunders just because I think there's more to his game, and I want to just, you know, I want to see what he can do. Like, I talked to him early on just about how they're getting him into situations where he can attack a little bit more than he has throughout his career. Like, I want to see what he can do with that. He's fast, he's athletic, he's also a big guy. How does he affect their run defense just by like swallowing up people on the inside? Is he keeping things cleaner for Pete Werner and Demario Davis? Like, I'm intrigued to see that interior defensive line because I think that is going to be like a huge factor in what determines the outcome.
The defensive
of the season.
line feels like a newcomer, doesn't it? I mean, you add in. I don't think Fusky will probably be a healthy and active, but Nathan Shepard will be new. But I feel like Carl Granderson's stepping into a bigger role. I feel like Malcolm Roach is stepping into a bigger role. It feels like the new defensive line is new. We'll have more on them later in the show. I want to go back to Carr real quick. The biggest question mark about Derek Carr is Derek Carr in the red zone. But I haven't written about it. We haven't talked about it that much because it just doesn't make sense to me that somebody is a different quarterback in the red zone that they are everywhere else on the field. But I mean, the numbers, the film clips that, you know, people have put on Twitter are pretty jarring. He played one drive in the Saints. He looked great in the red zone. He made a fantastic decision to get the ball to Keith Kirkwood. When you studied him, do you need Derek Carr to show you something in the red zone specifically? I
mean, I think it's just that piece of the pressure, you know, overall. It's just kind of like when things get messy, like the red zone, like there's just increased pressure there to get things out. It doesn't make sense though, because he's like the comeback kid too at the same time. So I don't know. It's weird to me. Like,
it doesn't make sense to me that's his.
And it was like an impossible thing to kind of evaluate in camp too, because it's like, it's not real. Like, you don't have the real pressure of like, I have to deliver here. Like, the weight of the world's on me. But look, that's the thing though. Like, I feel like maybe Carr's going to feel like the weight of the world isn't on him here because you have really good offensive weapons. You should have a really good defense, assuming, you know, things shake right. Alante Taylor's in the, like, I don't think that he's going to feel like every single time he's in the red zone, he has to deliver, or the whole entire season is going to collapse on his shoulders. So if you can go in there with just like a little bit more of a relaxed mentality, I think things slow down and maybe you execute a little bit better. And I think if he were probably being honest, like, and we've kind of heard him talk about, you know, hey, like, I wanted to come here because it didn't feel like it all had to be me before. Like, like that might apply to those specific situations too. So
that's a good point.
I do think that some of that stuff's going to clean up for him and level out. And, you know, maybe it allows him to operate a little bit better. But I think, you know, some of the warts that we saw in his game, I don't think that it's reasonable to think that these just like all evaporate and clear up. You know, he's in his 30s. He kind of is who he is as a quarterback, but I think some of it can get better. You can put a little bit of cover up on some of this stuff and you know, maybe it presents a little bit better.
The best Derek Carr, you know, every time I go on a radio show, every time I'm at a gathering with people that, you know, all ask about Derek Carr, the best way that I've come up with putting it is, we're not trying to say he's going to have, he could have the best season of his career, but we're not trying to guarantee that. We're not trying to guarantee he's going to be something he hasn't been before. But he just feels like the right fit. It feels like this was the offense he's built to be in. It feels like he is the quarterback that's built to run the kind of offense Pete Carmichael wants to run. And the best comparison I can say is I think a positive scenario would be when Ryan Tannehill went to the Titans. They did not need their quarterback to change what they were. They just needed their quarterback to be a good fit for what they were. And Kirk Cousins with the Vikings. And I think all signs point to that's what he can be here.
And hopefully he can elevate that. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I know, but I mean, he doesn't need to.
Right.
It doesn't need to become.
The problem
Derek
with
Carr makes or breaks
Exactly.
his team. It's like this is a pretty good established team, and Derek Carr fits right in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The only problem with like those types of quarterbacks, when we talked about this all last offseason, is at some point they got to win you a game.
Yeah.
Like when it's crunch time, and
He's done that too.
He has. Maybe he will, but like Cousins hasn't gotten his team. Tannehill got really close. Like, but yeah, if you are in that mix, I think the Saints are fine with that. Like, it's just kind of you aren't getting Patrick Mahomes. Like, you know what I mean?
Tannehill got the Titans to the number 1 seed in the AFC. Cousins got the Vikings to the number 2 seed in the NFC. Let's start there before we start talking about whether they can get over the playoff hunt. I'd take a number 1 or 2 seed.
Oh yeah, no question. Speaking of Derek Carr, I'm assuming. Well, we'll see. We'll get into this.
Yeah.
I don't want to assume Chris Olave is going to be his favorite target. He might not be. He's going to be one of his 2 favorite targets. It's either going to be him or Mike Thomas. So that brings us to our fantasy question of the week, presented by the Louisiana Lottery. Scratch off those tickets, win your money, do whatever you got to do with them. How confident should people be in Chris Olave? Definitely not a lottery ticket, because this is a sure thing. It's just how far is it going?
Well, look, I do assume he is going to be his favorite target. And actually, my answer to the question is the opposite of the way you just set it up. So if you look at fantasy drafts, average draft, position rankings that everyone's got right now, there's a clear top 5. And then that second group that's like 6 through 10, Cooper Kupp's hurt now. He might fall out of that. Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, the other rookie who got more attention last year. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the number 1 guy in Detroit. A.J. Brown, the number 1 guy in Philly. I'm putting Olave more in that group. He is going more like 15th behind T. Higgins, who is a number 2 in Cincinnati, behind Devontae Smith, who's a number 2 in Philly, behind Jalen Waddle, who's a number 2 in Miami, behind DK Metcalf, who is a 1A, 1B in Seattle. I think Olave belongs with the 1 guys. And I think the reason he's going 15th is because I think people assume it's going to be an Olave-Michael Thomas split here. I think Olave's the 1 and Thomas is the 2. I really do. I'm taking Olave up there right next to where I'd take Garrett Wilson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'd put him in the same tier and be happy to get any one of those guys. I'd take him ahead of T. Higgins, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, guys who were number 2s in their offense.
Greg Rosenthal actually predicted that he'd be the offensive player of the year this year, which I don't think is outrageous either. I think there's a chance if they're a good team and they're scoring a lot of points. I think Carr's passing numbers have a chance to be as high as they've ever been his whole entire career. Like, every time I look at him, I'm like looking at those numbers and I'm like, I don't know. Like, is he going to elevate? And it's like, yeah, I think he's going to have more than 4,000 yards in this offense. Like, I think that number just goes up, and he does execute there. So, but look, if I had to break it down and I was placing money on like this, and you told me, Mike, let's just say you can know Mike's going to be healthy for 90% of the season. I think there is a very, very, very good chance that Mike out targets Chris Olave.
Sure.
I think Olave's leading the team in yards. No question about it, I think, just because you got the big
yards,
playability.
Olave catches Mike.
I think Mike's going to lead the team in catches. So I don't know how you want to parse that like favorite target thing, but I think Mike Thomas is going to get his targets for sure. Just like look at how he's played with Renfro. Like Renfro had 100 targets during his good season. Like I think Mike's just going to be that security blanket for him. And I think it goes back to what we were saying before. Like there isn't going to be as much like ride or die. Like Carr can air it out, but like if he feels like he doesn't have to win on every single drive on his own arm, I think you do kind of play it a little bit more conservatively than maybe you have in the past. Not that he's like a gunslinger by any means, but I think Mike Thomas is just going to kind of be that guy going over the middle, getting the ball, moving the chains, and you kind of go about it that way methodically. And that's just who Mike is.
That's
like,
fine. Yeah,
that's who Mike is. That's how your offense should work. If Mike's healthy and he can do that, like he should be the guy doing that every single time. But I do think it's never going to be like the Mike Thomas show anymore. Like this is Chris Olave's team now. It should be. And I think he does outpace.
I don't think Chris will ever have a quiet day. I mean, Chris can have a 3-catch day that matters, and Chris can have a 10-catch day that matters. So that's why I would be perfectly happy with him. I mean, really, I don't know why the discussion for Chris Olave is different than the discussion for Garrett Wilson. Is it just the Aaron Rodgers factor? Is it because the Jets don't have a Michael Thomas thing? But I'd put him in right after that. But the other thing about the Saints is I'm very high on Juwan Johnson for fantasy. We just talked about how their intent to get Alvin Kamara back to being a big part of the passing game. So the tight ends and the running backs are going to be a big part of this offense too.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, let's get into our break. We'll be back with more right after this.
Now, at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company, get our $10.99 shrimp remoulade combos with zesty shrimp remoulade and fried shrimp or catfish for only $10.99. And did you hear? Soft-shelled crabs are back at New Orleans Hamburger and Seafood Company.
Are you tired of renting and ready to own your dream home? Contact Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union, your trusted source for home loans. Our competitive rates and flexible terms can help make your home ownership dreams a reality. If you're a first-time home buyer or looking to refinance, our experienced lenders are here to help. Our online application process allows you to apply on your schedule. It's quick, easy, and convenient. Visit us online at jeffersonfinancial.org to learn more. Federally insured by NCUA, Equal Housing Lender.
At Turo, we were born for moments like this. From bringing new bundles of joy into the world, to delivering what new mothers need to stay healthy. Born to keep hearts beating strong, and to keep seniors active and healthy for years to come. Because at Turo, we deliver more than babies. From heart care to cancer care, and newborns to seniors. At Turo, we're born to care.
Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and much, much more. They are family owned and operated since 1946 and specialize in wine, spirits, gourmet food, gift baskets, catering, and tasting events. They have many locations, so they're never too far away. You can check them out in Metairie, New Orleans, Mandeville, and Baton Rouge, or if it's more convenient, you can always shop online. Whether you're a wine novice or a seasoned collector, you'll enjoy the Martin Wine and Spirit experience.
I'll take a New Orleans Saints scratch up. Play New Orleans Saints from the lottery. Just scratch, fold, and punch your way to winnings. Punch your ticket with New Orleans Saints. Win up to $100,000. Enter our second chance drawings, giving you a season to smile.
All right, welcome back to the Turo Hospital studio, and we've got our money segment sponsored by Jefferson Financial Federal Credit Union. This is one I think we're going to be talking about a lot this week. Is this Saints run defense, which was already a huge question mark, they rebuilt the whole thing, ready for the Titans and Derrick Henry in week one? I mean, I never thought of that when the schedule came out, but, you know, tackling is always an issue for teams early in the season. It's kind of one of the worst week one opponents you can have.
Don't forget Tajay either. Like, he had an amazing preseason with some huge games and huge plays. His highlights were incredible all throughout the preseason. So if that was the goal, like, it's going to be tested immediately.
Yeah.
Like that's what Colin Saunders is here for, to make that run defense better. The linebackers got to be flowing. I think it's a huge test for Alontae Taylor in the slot. Like, you got to be a good run defender from that position. So that's a huge test for him too. So yeah, we're going to find out the fact or fiction on that right away. But you know what the best way to just kind of limit that is? Get Derek Carr on the offense going, score a lot of points, get up by 14 in midway through the second quarter, and you don't have to defend the run the rest of the day. So that was kind of, the key to success for a long time when we were, the stupid 100-yard rusher stat was just like, well, yeah, people can't run because they're winning games. Like, so if you can get up, even if you have some leaky yardage, it goes away very, very quickly if your offense is humming.
That's pretty, didn't I say Pollyannish once and you had never heard that before?
Yeah,
that's a pretty, looking through rose. I don't think the Saints are the kind of team who can count on being up by 14 a lot. I think they're going to have to grind out wins. And this is an evenly matched opponent, I think. So I think that's a hard thing to count on. And I think the Titans will stick with Derrick Henry and Tajay Spears until they realize they have no other option. So, yeah, I guess my biggest question with them is all the things I've liked about the Saints defensive line is I've liked Carl Granderson a lot. I've liked Malcolm Roach a lot. I've liked Brzee, and I've liked Peyton Turner a lot. But I like their athleticism. I like their pass rush moves. I don't know if I think that is a great defensive front. I do think Colin Saunders is big for the run defense. Cam Jordan mentioned him over and over again when we talked to him yesterday, and that's what he kept saying. I love that he wants to get in there and absorb the run and make things easier for us, and that first and foremost. But I'm a little concerned. I am a little concerned. And also, I mean, I think this is league-wide. This is not just a Saints issue. But I think teams look sloppy in week 1 trying to tackle guys. I think we're going to see Derrick Henry and Tyjae Spears have over 30 carries in this game. I really do.
Look, I don't think that they're going to get up by 14 and run off on them, but that's the best way to do it. I disagree a little, though. Like, if this is a grinded-out team all season long with the schedule that they have, they probably suck. Like, they should be beating some teams by 14.
That's true.
And you went out, you got Carr, and you have all these guys on offense. Defense should be good. So there's a handful of games that they should, but this probably is not one of them. It probably is a grinded out game, and they're gonna have to stand in there. And look, we're gonna find something out about Nathan Shepard too. Like, he's someone that I feel like we didn't talk about him. We didn't notice him a whole lot during training camp. Nature of the position, you're on the inside, all that stuff. But like, I've heard he's like mean and a dog or whatever. So like, we're gonna find out if that's the truth. So we're gonna find some things out about him. You know, I don't expect Brian Brzee to really be a factor in the run defense. He's probably not ready for that yet. But those two guys, like, that's probably specifically why they were brought in here, to make that interior better against the run. This is a week you got to do it. But yeah, if they're struggling, I think it's a whole different type of game, and it's going to be a tough outcome for them. That brings us into our Martin Wine and Spirits question of the day. Martin Wine and Spirits is home to a wide selection of hand-picked barrel select bourbon, whiskeys, and more. And we're going to do 2 of these today, since the first one I think is probably kind of a quick answer, but it's a good question. How short of a leash is the new punter on Lou Hedley before deciding on getting another one? So if Lou Hedley struggles, how long do they stick with him before going out to get another one? That is from S Yanks 2020.
I mean, this could be a Blake Groupie question too. But with Hedley, I think there will probably be a little bit of a leash. I just wrote about him this week. I was kind of fascinated first by how unique he is, but then I became even more fascinated by digging into the Saints are kind of following a radical new trend in the NFL that's really overtaking college football with the Australian punter. Like half of college football's punters have come from Australia because they like this style. But in college, those guys are allowed to roll out, and the guys covering the kicks get a free release. So it's become really popular because you can roll out, you can get that 2 seconds to get your guys down the field, and then you can kick kind of the wobble, the line drive that's hard to catch. Lou Hedley can't do that in the NFL. So Darren Rizzi said he's learning to stay in the pocket and kick with that style in the pocket. And he said he's been growing with kind of each passing week. His last 2 games were probably the 2 that cemented his place on the roster, but he thinks he still has a higher ceiling as he continues to learn that. So I think they picked him sort of because of this vision for a new way to punt. I think they think there's going to be very few return yards this year with that style of punter. Maybe there'll be more muffs, more fumbles. I don't think they're going to have a short leash with him because I think they know they're working with and developing something that they might have to be a little patient with.
Yeah, and Darren Rizzi's like out of his mind right now talking about situational gunners and everything, which is just, it's awesome. Like, he wants to get them set up to where, they have gunners in specific roles. Like, obviously JT Gray is going to be a full-time one probably every single snap, but like on the other side, there's guys that are better at getting down the field quicker, guys that are better at beating the double team, guys that are better at, in the short field, getting down and tracking the ball and kind of stopping it at the 1 yard line or whatever. So he wants to put guys in different situations to do different things. But to answer the question, like, I think if Lou Hedley has 2 bad weeks, he's out of here. Like,
2?
2.
Oh, I disagree.
If he's muffing punts for the first 2 weeks, you got to go get somebody else. You can't lose games on your punter. And Blake Gillikin's out there. So,
yeah,
like,
it's true. It's true.
I don't think there's a long leash here at all. Like, if your punter is not executing, like, that's it. He's out.
All right,
He's out.
but I'm asking the question. I give him 6 weeks, but
no.
But the kicker, I want to know how long, especially since Will Lutz is not out here anymore.
No, I think Groupie has.
And I don't even think Brett Maher's out here. I think he just got signed or whatever. So how long is Groupie? What if Groupie misses 2 of his first 4, 3 of his first 6?
I think if the punter has 3 weeks, I think Groupie has if the punter has 2 weeks, I think Groupie has 3 or 4. I think he has a slightly longer leash because there's more upside there. They chose him over somebody else. The punter thing that I think we're like quickly forgetting here is that both of them struggled.
Yeah.
And it was like just picking the best out of the 2 and seeing how it goes. And then if it doesn't go well, I think you just kind of flip out of that quickly. It's sort of like Lutz. He came out, missed a kick early in his career. They had a lot of belief in him. He figured it out. I think Groupie's kind of more on that path to where they think he has like a long future. And the other guy, no disrespect, is a 30-year-old rookie who, barely beat out another guy who struggled throughout camp. So I don't think it's
that
6.
that was my gut.
Like, Groupie might have 6. I don't think Hedley has 6 weeks.
On the punter question, that my gut was that, and I think we just talked about it on the show on our cut down day show that could be something they change their mind. But it was in hearing their explanation and realizing what a work in progress he still is. I think that explains why we saw him looking kind of meh all summer. Is I didn't realize that he did those rugby style kicks that are legal in college throughout his college career, and he learned a new style. And it feels like it started to click in the last 2 weeks, and I think that's why they made that decision. So that's what makes me. I think I would have been with you on 2 weeks until I got that backstory, and now I think they give it at least a month.
I think it's just kind of put up or shut up a little bit. It's just.
I hope we're not going down that path
you can't
with
lose
either of
games
those
on
positions.
Punts. You can't lose games on punt. You just can't. There's just like no tolerance. Like for any special teams, though, there's no tolerance to lose games on special teams. Like you just can't have it. You can't have it.
One more stat while we talk about punter, maybe for the last time all season on the show. Hopefully it's not a big issue that we have to keep talking about. But when I was researching the summer that Headley had, I didn't catch this at the time. He kicked 11 punts in the preseason games. Only one was returned. Some were returned for no yards. But 11 total punts, 7 total return yards. That's what they're hoping this decision leads to.
Yeah, hopefully it does. I mean, they need to be much, much better punting. And our next one from Jay Mood is, why is Tre'Quan Smith still on the team if he's never healthy enough to be a consistent contributor?
Well, he's maybe not even going to play in week 1. I was surprised actually that they didn't put him on IR, because it would have been so easy to be like, we don't need you for 4 weeks. We'll use you when we need you. But the fact that they didn't put him on IR lets me know he's part of the plans. But it's the same things we've always said about Tre'Quan Smith. He is the best blocker on the team. He can play a little special teams. Darren Rizzi mentioned him as one of those situational gunners he might want to use when they want the good hands gunners out there. And I was talking to Tre'Quan Smith back when he was healthy and having a good start to camp. And he kind of like sheepishly or proudly or somewhere in between, he wasn't trying to be cocky or whatever, but he said they put on film to show all the receivers in camp, good examples of blocking and what they want to see from their blockers. And he said about half the clips were of me. So I was pretty proud of that. That's why he's on the team.
He's on the team because nobody was able to beat him out. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of, they brought in a lot of guys. And when they brought him in, my thinking immediately was like, these are guys they're trying to replace Tre'Quan. Like they just
especially the veterans. You're talking like James Washington, Brian Edwards,
all them dudes. Yeah, they brought him in.
Kiki Kuti.
Yes, to line him up against Tre'Quan Smith, and Tre'Quan Smith shot them all down while being injured still too. You know what I mean? Like, so that's just, they couldn't bypass him. He is solid at what he does. As much as the fans dislike him, wasn't worth a 3rd round pick. I think we're all in agreement on that. He's a guy that just kind of does the dirty work. Sometimes makes contested catches, sometimes doesn't. But he's fine in that area. Nobody can beat him out. I mean, that's just the problem. Like, he's a survivor.
I mean, and I think questions like this come after you see Shaq Davis make the catches he makes. It's the same thing about Ellis Merriweather not making the team. We're talking about why Kirk Merritt and Tony Jones. Once you reach a certain point, once you're like the 5th pass catcher, pass catching doesn't become the number 1 quality anymore.
Yeah, and look, part of the problem with that too, though, like the thing people don't, it is, there are receivers across the league that go off against second string defenses. Like they just do that. They're in every city. There's a hype guy in every single city. They get blown up into major stars in big markets, and then they never do nothing. And then they become medium-sized stars in markets like this, and they never do nothing. There's a million of these guys out there. It just kind of happens. And then, I think the thing that happened for Shaq Davis is a couple guys get hurt, a couple guys get cut. The field clears a little bit. He shines a little bit more because there's more opportunity in that one game. He makes his plays, starts doing stuff in practice. Like he looked good in that, but like you said, he's not. You aren't throwing him the ball instead of Mike Thomas. You aren't throwing him the ball instead of Rashid Shaheed. You aren't throwing him the ball instead of Chris Olave. So what are you doing?
Instead of Juwan Johnson, instead of Jimmy Graham. Like, I mean, that's the problem. Yeah.
So what is your role on game day? Okay, Shaq Davis isn't really doing anything on special teams. He makes contested catches. There's better guys at doing that. So what is his role for the 2023 team? Practice squad. Like that's just where you got to go.
I am glad they got him on the practice squad, though. I did also like what we saw. He was a hype guy for a reason. But yeah, I mean, that every time we've ever picked our 53-man roster, it's like you pick the top 3 receivers, and then the 4 and 5 guys are here for a reason. And a lot of times that's special teams, or that's blocking, or that's A.T. Perry is the developmental guy that they had to keep on the roster.
And when you're looking at, like, when you're making that decision, you're looking at every team, and they're going through the same calculus here. Okay, like if we pick up this guy, what is he doing for us this season? Because now he has to be on our 53-man roster. And is Shaq Davis better than any of their top 3? He's not gonna be. So that's just kind of what you do. You make the risk, you cut him, and he comes back. That guy clears 99.9% of the time through waivers, and you get him back on your team. And everybody has their Shaq Davis that's going to be around They're going to come into camp next year. Is it going to be Lucas Kroll or is it going to be, someone or Jawan Johnson? Like those guys just they come, they develop, and sometimes they're good. Most of the times they just kind of stay the same. But I think Shaq does have a chance. I was extremely encouraged by him by the end of camp. I liked him kind of coming in. Then it was like rickety and quiet, and then it was like he just got some confidence and off he went. But yeah, I mean, it's just they aren't good enough to beat out Traquan at all the dirty work, and that's just
Just
the
quick
fact of the
question
matter.
while we're on this subject. Do you expect A.T. Perry to be active and do anything in September, in week 1 and week 2?
I think he'll get a chance at some point.
Yeah.
I think we'll get
Maybe
on
if
the field at some
Traquan's not
point.
playing week 1,
Yeah.
he's actually active. Yeah, it'd be a 5th receiver still, though, if Keith Kirkwood is active.
I think he gets a chance at some point though to do some stuff. But yeah, he's a guy that you aren't cutting and getting through the waivers. So it's a little bit easier to like stash a guy or two now that you have the elevation from the practice squad. So I mean, it's definitely possible that he could just be inactive every single week, but you can't have 2 of those guys. You
can't have
just
2.
Can't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if Perry's going to be inactive. I mean, he really might be at 5 receivers. If none of them is, I guess since Rashid Shaheed's a return man, maybe there'll be 5 active receivers in week 1. But
It's possible.
that would be the reason why. If you're like, why is A.T. Perry inactive for this game? That would be the reason why.
All right, that's all we got for you guys. Keep it locked. NewOrleans.Football. We'll be back next week with more shows. We got a couple big things coming up in the near future. So thanks for watching.